Today we're talking about the company you've just announced the results of your first, I better read this out, MSP Global Preferences Survey. So it'd be good to share, I suppose, to start with, at least the high level, what was the major discovery from the survey?
Sure. So we surveyed over 1,000 MSPs. That's a global audience, right? And MSPs of various sizes and various focus on market segments, and talked a lot about what's driving their business, what opportunities that they see out there with their end customers, and really three main results came to the surface, some of which are probably no surprise to the audience, given some of the requirements that have been placed upon businesses and schools and governments due to the pandemic. So number one is that the opportunity around collaboration, security, and governance is at the forefront, right? We certainly have seen that as businesses, as schools have rushed to keep the lights on and put people on these remote collaboration platforms, customers are now engaging MSPs and saying, help us. We need to make sure that there aren't vulnerabilities or risks in our environment. And so MSPs are boning up and investing in their systems and processes and people with that collaboration, security, and governance. Second result that we saw, again, no surprise, but just the prevalence of ransomware and the MSPs really doubling down on kind of cyber resilience strategies. One, to protect their own business, because we've seen in the news, without naming names, a number of MSPs and MSP software been infected by attacks. And obviously the clients of MSPs is just prevalent. So following a lot of the guidelines and the recommendations by governments around the world for backup and retention and cyber defense, ransomware is at the forefront. And then finally, I think number three is what did surprise us a little bit from the MSPs is this focus on migration going forward, right? A lot of us assume, hey, we've already moved to the cloud, and so maybe migration isn't such a hot topic or an area that MSPs are looking to add. But in fact, when you look at, again, at a global audience, there's many countries that are in the early stages of moving to the cloud. But even in more mature cloud adopted countries, there's a lot of new cloud to cloud migrations that MSPs are focused on. So those were really the three main areas that they're looking at: this collaboration, security, and governance, ransomware and cyber resilience, and then migration.
And just following up on the ransomware side, I think if I remember correctly, it was about 50%, half of your sort of survey respondents said the company organization had suffered a ransomware attack in the last 12 months. I mean, that seems to be an incredibly large quantity. And did you have any granularity onto successful versus unsuccessful? Any sort of ideas as to how serious that was, or a lot of them dealt with it successfully, or was this all successful ransomware attacks? Just sort of any thoughts on that?
The results, I would say, are worth a double click into ransomware that onto the MSPs or partner businesses themselves, and separate from their clientele. So in some cases, and again, this is anecdotal, Phil, but I've talked to partners every day. That's what I do. I listen and I learn. And as you've noticed, you've probably seen in your experience here in the industry, sometimes partners can have, what do they say, the cobbler's kids' shoes, right? Where they're doubling down, investing in IT and protection for their clients, but potentially not as much so for their own internal businesses. And what I've been hearing loud and clear in my conversations with partners is that they're saying, now we need to look internally. We need to have our own, cyber insurance. We need to put in all of these tools and all of these processes for our own businesses in a way that they haven't done so before, because of some of these recent attacks that have specifically targeted remote monitoring tools used by MSPs. So I think if you took a look back even 1 year from now, you wouldn't have such a sense of urgency within the MSPs and their internal businesses to provide that level of defense. And then within their clientele, all of them are saying we are adding more, monitoring, more line of sight, and advising a lot more protection for our own MSPs in order to, for our own clientele in order to protect their environment. 50%, I'd say, is a lot of them were surprised that they say that's probably a conservative number. That what do they say? You know what you know, but you also don't know what you don't know. A lot of them say our clients have probably been attacked and we haven't even really figured that out yet.
And in terms of the cloud migration thing, I'm interested there. You say a lot of the MSPs, the survey revealed, are planning to add those services. So are they helping their customers sort of move as I think you said, from one cloud to another, or first into cloud? I mean, are the MSPs trying to own some of that cloud end service, or is it just a sort of add-on that they're offering to what they give their customers, and they're saying, okay, yeah, we'll also help you go to AWS or whatever, but they're not going to make any money out of it? Just some understanding as to how the MSPs are monetizing or not that sort of cloud migration.
Yeah, it was, if I recall correctly, it was 62%, right, of the partners were planning to add cloud migration to support both on-prem to cloud and then cloud to cloud. Even in AvePoint's own business, for example, and I loathe to sound like an advertisement here, but we provide both on-prem and SaaS migration solutions. We provide them both for on-prem to cloud and cloud to cloud. If you look at something like our migration tool for Slack to Teams, well, here's a customer that might be already in the cloud. They're using a SaaS collaboration application like Teams, but now they're moving and they're trying to consolidate their IT environment with a platform approach, moving to Office or Microsoft 365 and starting to use Teams. So in that case, the MSP is now doing a cloud to cloud migration. So domestically, again, here in the United States, where a lot of small businesses, enterprise, public sector have moved to the cloud, we see MSPs now doubling down on their expertise and their skill set in cloud to cloud migrations. But if you look at other parts of the world, and parts of Europe, parts of Africa, parts of Asia Pacific, they're still in the initial phases of moving, a SharePoint on-premise to a SharePoint online, an Exchange on-premise to online and M365. So it is both. The data within this survey, that's again, over 60% of partners are looking to add or invest more in these various cloud migration services.
Okay, and I think another survey result which intrigues me somewhat is, I think the majority of them I think they have 20 plus software vendors of which they are engaged, presumably offering solutions and stuff like that. So and I think the survey suggested that a lot of them would like to consolidate that number. And if you'll bear with me a minute, because it's a sort of slightly complicated, but also your survey revealed that they're wanting to sort of take on new solutions and new revenue streams. So I guess the question is, how is it possible to do both, to consolidate the number of vendor solutions they have, but also to be offering new services to their customer base? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think that's the challenge, right? So it's a practical challenge. If you look at the role of partner, be them a VAR, system integrator, a managed service provider, on one hand, what they do well is this role of a virtual CIO, right? A technology advisor, meeting with their clients and introducing the latest technology trends or the latest emerging technology categories and vendors, planning roadmaps. And they need to do that, right? They need to follow the next bright, shiny object and ensure that they're adapting as they have for the last 2 decades as technology has changed. So they just have to do that, keep the finger on the pulse of the emerging technologies. And then at the same time, there's a labor shortage, right? I mean, there is a shortage of IT talent and cyber security talent. And this is impacting not only end users, but impacting the channel as well, partners and vendors, ISVs and OEMs. And so you need to be able to do more with your human capital. And a lot of that is around your the manageability of your services operations, how efficiently that you can integrate and automate the various vendors, how many dashboards that you're needing to use, how many vendors that you're needing to get training and certification. So that's what they're balancing right now. A partner absolutely is looking to have their the technology environment of a client covered with their own services, but they're trying to minimize this manageability. That is driving this platform play. We're an example of that. We can have best of breed solutions for a partner. If a partner wants to add migration and they're already an AvePoint partner, that maybe they've been using our backup, maybe they've been using our governance solutions. Well, they can add migration. It's built within the platform rather than I'm going to go add a third-party point product, right? In the cybersecurity world, there's a number of top leading cybersecurity companies that also offer a platform approach that can provide security from endpoint through the network, through the public cloud and the data center with one vendor versus 6 or 7 different security point products. So I think if you look at some of those drivers, you see why this platform approach makes sense. Integrated, automated, all on one dashboard. It's more effective to use the human capital within the partners than trying to have so many different vendors that are disparate and not sharing information and integrated.
So I guess the suggestion is that MSPs need to be a bit smarter the way they build their solutions portfolio. And you say maybe historically they've grabbed little bits here and there and ended up with I call it a rag back is perhaps a little bit unfair to them, because I'm sure there's a strategy, but it's all a little bit sort of confused. So they need to concentrate on, perhaps, as you say, fewer vendors that are offering more solutions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think again, it's they may dabble, right? But in order to truly build scale within the business and reduce cost to sell, and more importantly, cost to serve, you can't dabble all the time. You can't have 100 different vendors that you have each of them on 3 or 4 different customers. You need to have a core set of platform vendors that you can put across your 100 customers in order to really generate scale. Again, keep your finger on the pulse of the market. You've got vendors knocking on your door every day. You've got invitations to webinars, invitations to trade shows to help partners learn more about these new products. You might have an end customer say, hey, I heard about this new vendor and I want to use it. Okay, but really have a strategy and think, what are the right vendors that we know are going to provide scale, provide the right level of support, going to protect my reputation because of support, quality of service, and survivability of the vendor. As you know, covering this industry, you can have what looks like a very quote unquote sexy vendor coming out of Silicon Valley, well-funded, all of the right marketing messages. They last but a couple of years, right? Where a managed service provider puts them in a really awkward position if a vendor doesn't have survivability and support. Look at AvePoint. We've been around, again, I'm loath to sound like a commercial, but been around 20 years, 24/7 live support for our partners, demonstrated that we've got 800 plus people in R&D, strong relationship with Microsoft. You partner with us, we have that type of survivability and support that the MSPs can trust and rely on.
So I guess another way of putting it, or some of these people have to be strong enough to know what they can do, and what, also, as you say, to resist those tempting offers that look really good. They actually need to be able to turn away some opportunities because they understand that they can't actually support them as well as they need to, if they've got so many other solutions in their bag.
Yeah, I mean, there's sometimes you need to say no, right? There's a cost to every long tail vendor that you might take on. And again, from a cost to sell, but more importantly, a cost to serve perspective, you want to generate scale, repeatable processes, a consistent manageability across a smaller subset of vendor partners rather than having a disparate long tail.
And one other thing, again, which slightly intrigues me in the surveys, that a lot of the MSPs are wanting to sort of further develop their recurring revenue potential. I mean, by their definition, offering managed services, I kind of assumed that it was all recurring revenue rather than obviously selling a piece of hardware and then doing a bit of after sales support. But so what does that actually mean in practice? To how they just want to do more, say, offer more solutions, or how do they see or want to increase that recurring revenue model?
For a long time, let's say the last 5 or 10 years, there was this kind of nirvana for a reseller to become a managed service provider and build monthly recurring revenue, and to try to get that to nearly 100% of their revenues. And a lot of them moved away from selling product, particularly selling hardware, and say we're going to move everything to a services or a consumption model. We're kind of 10 years into this transition from primarily product resale and point services to this more hybrid model. And the survey actually revealed that, it's okay not to have more than 50% of your business coming from monthly recurring revenue. Practically, a partner needs to be agile these days because of end customer technology consumption and procurement preferences. I mean, we've seen that the technology buyers have an incredible amount of leverage and power and choice these days. And they might want some on utility computing. They may want some on enterprise agreements, right? All you can eat agreement, multi-year contracts. They might want some that they buy direct and a partner is getting an influencer fee or a referral rebate. The end customer might want these monthly recurring contracts. They might hire partners for projects, which will lead to more monthly recurring. So I think that the partners are moving towards service-oriented models. They want to develop their own intellectual properties, but it's okay that some 50%, half your business might be that predictable monthly recurring on contract, but still allowing the partners to be agile and take advantage of opportunities to grow their business. Again, if I talk about this with my AvePoint partners, here's a practical example, Phil. They work with a new client. New client again wants to do a migration. We have to come off of Exchange on-prem and we're going to go to Microsoft 365 and Teams. There's a one-time project in the migration. They're not going to charge typically for a migration license. That's a professional service that might last 3 or 6 months. Great, take the revenue, use your resources, a good billable event, a good profitable service engagement. Now the end customer is in 365, and so now you're going to sell them a backup, a governance, a cyber resilience monthly recurring contract. That progresses for 6 months. The partner then goes in and says, hey, we want to take your governance to the next level. And we know that in your industry, in your particular geography and industry, there's records requirements for compliance. Let us go in and do a governance and records assessment. That's a one-time project. Might be a monthly engagement, a professional service, a one-time billable event. That might lead to the sale of governance and records management licenses in a 3-year contract. Great. That's a one-time spike in license revenue. And then they're going to add a managed governance service, which increases their monthly recurring or their ARPU with that client. So if you look at the scope, you have a partner that's providing an incredible amount of services and value add for that client. Some of it is one-time services. A lot of it is monthly recurring. Some of it is in a license sale. That's a good thing, right? They're meeting the buyer where it's at, offering different choices, working with their ISVs in order to take advantage of our technology and the economic opportunity that we create for those partners.
Okay, yeah, and maybe it's a good time to move on to AvePoint yourself. I think you've recently launched your first global partner program, so it'd be great to understand, I guess, the solutions that are you're offering in that, and as importantly, the ways. I mean, most of these programs have different levels of engagement, so to understand how people in the channel, MSPs and the like, can engage with you at the different levels, maybe.
Yeah, there were 2 drivers, right, that as a project team that we heard kind of loud and clear when we did all of our crowdsourcing, when we had our partner conversations, when we met with some of the different analysts and these channel gurus in the industry. Those two drivers were keep it simple, right? Keep it simple. Partners have a lot of programs, make it easy for them to engage, easy to understand, how they can be successful in the program, how they can make money. That was a big driver. And the second driver was, hey, there's this diversity of partner business model. A lot of these legacy partner programs were built in the old hardware or software license resale days that are no longer applicable to a lot of these modern partners and the partner of the future, the cloud consultants, the DevOps partners, IP co-creators, managed service providers. So design a program that has flexibility for that modern partner and these various business models for partners now and in the future. So with that, we said, okay, let's create a global framework that's adaptable to the local markets. Let's create a framework where it's easy for the partners to have support, to do partner co-selling, to get all that training and enablement that they need, but let them pick and choose what they want to do, how they want their partnership to be with AvePoint, and that economic opportunity that they want to create around our various products. So that's the drivers. That's what we kicked off on in the middle of July. Easy for partners to engage, www.avepoint.com/partners, or find us on LinkedIn.
And in terms of just quickly the breadth of those solutions, can you give us a rundown of what it is MSPs, or you've referenced obviously various government security, all that kind of stuff, but what's your portfolio that the partners can access?
Sure. So AvePoint, we are the largest data management ISV for Microsoft 365, right? We say we help businesses collaborate with confidence in this digital collaboration security platform. Everything from moving data from on-premise to the cloud, right? A suite of migration tools for partners and end customers. Everything that has to do with data backup and data retention, and everything that you need to do to kind of inspect that data, right? Policies, insights, permissions. We talked about that there's a cloud governance suite, a records management, an archiving suite. So getting data to the cloud, ensuring it's backed up, that you can go and get it when you need to get it, right? And then everything around governance and compliance to help businesses meet various industry and business regulations and requirements.
Okay, excellent. And maybe just as we sort of wind up, it'd be good if you've got one or two pieces. We've talked a lot, and you've talked a lot about the way that the channel needs to move, or how it is moving, as revealed by the survey. But if you have one or two pieces of advice for an MSP that is struggling with some of the issues we've discussed, and they're looking obviously to develop their portfolio to help end users address their pain points, are there a couple of sort of major things you'd recommend that they focus on, before they make any sort of major decisions?
Yeah, I'll offer a few. So what's interesting is that more and more vendors in our industry are starting to talk about this ecosystem economic opportunity that's generated, like the dollar of Microsoft or Google or Salesforce generates X number of dollars in ecosystem economic opportunities for the partners. I think it's quite compelling. There's a lot of research. There's a lot of these white papers that Microsoft has made with IDC to talk about its 9.5x. Really, if you're the partner business, like, pay attention to those, right? Read those, understand how can I take that dollar and make 9.5, because it is available, right? I think Google and Salesforce are in the range of $5 to $6 per every dollar license, but if you can configure a business model where you're going to take advantage of that multiplier effect, I think that's a really good piece of advice. Like, heed the research and make sure that you're taking advantage of that. And then I'll go back to what I said a little bit earlier, is that buyers are empowered. there are so many different routes to market these days for technology that are giving buyers so many choices, right? The distributors, the rise of these B2B marketplaces, the direct market, e-commerce reseller, license providers, local and global systems integrators, all the kind of the former accountant and consultancy firms moving into IT, tax companies moving into IT. There's choice, right? So partners need to have an agile business model where they meet the buyers where they are. This democratization of IT is empowering not just the IT teams in the end customers, but all the lines of business owners. You got to go meet them, meet the owners of sales and marketing and HR within your existing or your prospective clients. But this agility in business model and meeting buyers where their needs and preferences are is the other big piece of advice that I'd share.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's been lovely to chat, and you provided some really valuable insights both about the survey and also, what the channel is up to, and perhaps more importantly where it needs to go. So, Jason, thanks very much indeed for your time. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for having me on, Phil.